I saw it, and although many may not believe me, that night I understood that the sky can speak, and when it does, no heart can remain asleep. It all began with a painful silence. It wasn't the ordinary silence of the night, but an emptiness that weighed heavily on my soul. The air was still, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Not even the animals moved. It was then that I looked up at the sky, and I saw her. To the moon, or at least what was left of it. It no longer shone. It no longer reflected the light we knew. It was shrouded in a shadow so deep it seemed to devour the sky. A black, motionless sphere suspended above us like a sealed eye that, without looking, observed everything. At that moment I knew something had changed. My spirit felt it before my mind could understand, because that wasn't an eclipse. It was a sign, and the human heart recognized it without words. As I watched, a shiver ran through my body. There was no wind, but the air turned cold. I instinctively knelt down, not understanding why, and there, in the midst of that darkness that seemed to breathe, I heard his voice for the first time. It wasn't a sound, it was a presence, a voice that is not heard with the ears, but felt with the soul. My son, what you see is the veil that covers the world. It is the night of the spirit, the silence of the soul that has forgotten its creator. Upon hearing those words, my eyes filled with tears. I knew it was her, the mother, the one who spoke at Fatima, the one who wept at La Salette, the one who continues to appear in Medjugorje when the world no longer wants to listen. This black moon, he continued, is not a threat. It is a mirror. It reflects the state of humanity. Just as the moon has lost its light, so too have hearts grown dim. The darkness that covers the sky comes from within men, but there is still hope, if they listen. I was trembling. My knees were glued to the damp earth. The moon seemed to throb, as if something inside it were moving, alive, and then a crack of light crossed its surface, a silver thread that broke through the darkness. "My time to warn is coming to an end," Ella said. "Many have seen signs, but few have understood. Nations are in turmoil, the seas are raging, the skies are changing color. And yet men continue walking blindly into their own darkness. I wanted to speak, to ask, to shout, but I couldn't. It was as if my voice had become trapped between my chest and my soul. "Speak for me," he asked me. "Tell them that the night has begun, not a night of ours, but a spiritual night. The enemy moves in the shadows, disguised as light, and many no longer recognize his presence, but I still remain with you. As long as there is a praying heart, there will still be light." I felt a surge of inner fire, not a fire that burns, but one that purifies. My body was on its knees on the earth, but my spirit was before her. Her mantle unfurled over the black moon, and for a moment the darkness seemed to recede. "This sign," Mary said, "is a warning before the purification. Do not fear, but do not sleep either. Humanity has crossed the boundaries of love and surrendered to confusion, but those who take refuge in my immaculate heart will be preserved from the chaos that will come. I will gather them together, like a mother who shelters her children during a storm." I saw his face, not with the eyes of my body, but with the eyes of my soul. It was pure light, but that light held sadness, and I understood that heaven too weeps. "What should I do?" I asked silently. "Awaken the world, tell them that the silence of the sky is not emptiness, but waiting. Tell them there is still time, but not much. The black moon will be only the first sign. Afterward will come confusion, and then purification. Many will mock, many will remain silent, but you speak, even if your voice trembles, even if they call you mad. Speak, for this is my word." Then everything changed. The wind blew fiercely, and an invisible current lifted me up. The trees creaked, dogs began to bark in the distance, and the crack of light in the moon expanded until it covered the entire sky. A profound vibration coursed through the earth, as if a gigantic heart were beating beneath our feet. I saw lights on the horizon, flashes of light crossing the sky like silent lightning. And in the midst of that vision, a golden teardrop descended from the darkness and dissolved before it touched the ground. Maria spoke for the last time that night. When you see a tear fall, you will know that mercy is reaching its limit. Do not expect grand signs, for the true signs are within you. Repent. Pray. Do not let faith die. Heaven still looks upon you with love, but the time of warnings will soon close. Silence returned. The moon remained fixed, motionless, enveloped in a dark glow. But my heart burned. I had been a witness. I could not remain silent. I stood up, still trembling, and gazed at the horizon. The villages were asleep, the lights were off, and only the whisper of the wind accompanied my thoughts. I wanted to run and say it, but I felt inside that I should wait for the right moment. During the following days, the sky remained strange. The nights were colder, the dawns grayer. Many began to say that something was coming, others that it was all their imagination. But I knew the truth. The black moon hadn't disappeared. It had only hidden behind the veil of day, waiting for the next sign. And every time she closed her eyes, she heard his voice repeating, "There is still time, but the clock in the sky has already begun to tick." I didn't sleep that night, nor the nights that followed. I felt her presence near, as if she were walking on the whispers of the wind. In my dreams, I saw cities shrouded in shadows, but also small places filled with light where people prayed the rosary with faith. And I understood the full message. Darkness will not come to destroy, but to separate. Hearts that burn bright with prayer will endure. Those that go out will be lost. Since then, I've traveled from place to place, repeating her words. Some listen, others scoff, but everyone feels something when I speak them. Because they aren't mine, they're hers. And now I'm saying this to you, who are listening or reading this right now. She's calling you, not to scare you, but to wake you up, not to condemn you, but to remind you that heaven is still waiting for your answer. Look to the sky when the night is darkest. If you see that the moon is not shining, do not fear. In that silence is his voice. In that shadow is his promise. Because the Virgin has not left the world. She's just waiting for the world to look at her again. And when it does, when millions of hearts unite in prayer under that silent moon, then the sky will speak again, and the darkness will surrender to the light. That night will be recorded in history as the night of absolute silence, the moment when the messenger listened, and heaven chose him to announce what was to come. And even though the world still doesn't understand it, I know the black moon was only the beginning, because behind her shadow, something deeper, more divine and more terrible is about to be revealed. That night, after the black moon rose in the sky, the whole world seemed to hold its breath. City lights flickered, animals remained restless, and an aimless wind swept across the fields as if searching for a lost soul. I was still kneeling, my heart burning, repeating the words the Virgin had entrusted to me hours before. But something changed. Something began to reveal itself in the silence. The darkness wasn't just the absence of light. It was a living presence, something breathing within the folds of the sky. I felt it approaching, as if watching me from the unseen. And in the midst of that supernatural density, Maria's voice sounded again. But this time, it didn't come from the sky. It came from within me. My son, the shadow you see was not born of the night, but of the heart of man. What covers the skies today is a reflection of what humanity has allowed to grow within itself. Her words pierced my soul. I understood that the black moon was not a sign of the cosmos, but a mirror of the human spirit. Maria showed me visions. Cities that shone on the outside but were dead on the inside, souls that spoke of love while their hearts filled with bitterness, nations that raised flags of freedom while chaining their people with lies. And then she asked me in a soft but firm voice, "How can heaven remain pure when the earth has forgotten to mourn its sins?" I saw tears in her eyes, tears that fell like fire. Each drop that touched the earth ignited a small blue glow, a spark of mercy struggling not to be extinguished. But all around her, a thick mist, a shadow that had shape and movement, tried to smother every light. That shadow wasn't a symbol. It was real. It was the heart of darkness, the echo of human thoughts estranged from love. Maria made me feel its weight. I felt its coldness, its scent of despair. I understood that the enemy doesn't act only from the outside, but from the cracks in the soul, where man no longer allows grace to enter. And then she told me about the 3 seals of the dark heart. The first seal is indifference. It is the ice that covers love, when man stops looking at his brother as a reflection of himself. The second seal is pride, which turns the mind into its own god. The third is fear, the soul's last refuge, when it no longer trusts in my Son. As I listened, I felt a weight on my chest, as if those 3 shadows were trying to enter me. But then the Virgin extended her hand, and from her fingers sprang a light that was neither white nor gold, but the color of hope. It was a living, warm light that made me understand that there was still a way back. Tell them, my son, that darkness does not win by its strength, but by the silence of those who remain silent. When love is hidden, the shadow advances. When men stop praying, the heavens stop speaking. She showed me faces, mothers praying alone in cold rooms, elderly people silently offering up their pain, young people seeking solace in the night. They were few, but they were the ones who maintained the world's balance. Maria explained that these souls were like invisible torches that prevented the dark moon from going out completely. And then I understood my mission, not to speak of darkness, but of the battle for light. Not only to warn of punishment, but to awaken the silent army of those who pray, those who unknowingly keep the promise alive. But the Virgin warned me about something else, something that still trembles in my hands as I write these words. The black moon will return 3 times, and each return will bring a greater trial. In the first one, hearts will be confused. In the second one, the voices of heaven will be silenced. In the third, the men will have to choose who they belong to. I asked her, my voice trembling, what I should do when that time came. She lowered her gaze, and her face filled with immense sadness. So, my son, seek the heart that still loves, for in the midst of darkness, only love will recognize me. Her voice faded, and silence once again enveloped everything, but something remained burning within me. It was a faint glow, a spark that came not from heaven, but from my very soul. I understood that this light must not die, that I must speak, warn, call out, plead, even if the world refused to listen. That was the order. That was the mandate. Since that night, my life no longer belongs to me. And now, as I write what I saw, what I felt, what she confided in me, the moon rises again over the horizon, darker than before, closer, more alive. Its shadow glides over the seas, over the mountains, over the cities that sleep unaware that the sky is watching. I am just a messenger, but I know that what is coming is not a symbol, it is a decision. And Mary asked me to prepare those who listen, because the second sign is about to be revealed. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, after hearing the voice of the Mother of Heaven echoing within me? Outside, the wind swept the dry leaves as if the world itself were trying to hide its tracks. Every sound was a warning, every shadow a reminder that something had begun. The sky remained covered by the black moon, motionless, without light, like an eye that observes without blinking. And in that silence that seemed to have no end, I heard something new, the echo. At first it was a murmur, a subtle vibration, as if the mountains were breathing. But soon it transformed into a deep sound, like the beat of a distant drum. It was an echo, coming from the earth's interior, a call that no one seemed to hear, except me. I got up and went outside. The air was heavy, dense, charged with a tension that made my soul tremble. I didn't know where to go, but my steps moved on their own, guided by an invisible force. And then she spoke again, not from heaven, but from the echo itself. This sound, my son, is the echo of judgment, not the one that comes from men, but the one that is born when creation itself cries out for its creator. I felt the words pierce my chest. The Virgin showed me something. I saw the seas churning without wind, I saw the earth opening into luminous fissures, and I saw human faces reflected in the dark waters. Each face bore a distinct sign, an invisible mark. Some shone with a faint light, others were covered by a thick shadow that suffocated them. Each soul vibrates with a different echo, she said. Some resonate with mercy, others with oblivion. And when the echo of judgment touches the earth, what is hidden comes to light. Then I understood that that sound wasn't destruction, it was revelation. It was as if the entire universe were repeating God's heartbeat and asking, where is love? The rivers, the mountains, the animals. Everything seemed to respond with the same groan. And the Virgin, her face bathed in compassion, showed me the reason why that echo had begun to awaken. The time of silence is ending. Heaven has heard too much pain. The voices of the innocent, the tears of the righteous, and the cries of those who have lost all hope have reached the throne of the Most High. That is why the echo resounds, to remind us that justice is not punishment, but balance. As she spoke, I saw the heavens open. From the dark clouds emerged columns of light that descended upon the earth. They were not lightning bolts, they were presences. Angels, thousands of them, moved silently, each with an unseen task. Some touched the waters, others grazed the walls of cities. Wherever they passed, something awakened, a consciousness, a memory, a spark of truth. And Maria explained to me, the trial does not begin with fire but with conscience. Before the world is purified, the heart of man will be confronted with itself. Everything that was hidden will come to the surface. Every word spoken without love will weigh like a stone. I felt a chill run through me. I understood that the judgment she spoke of was not a date or a visible catastrophe. It was an hour of the soul, an invisible wave already sweeping through humanity, and many, without knowing it, were already being touched by that echo. Some became more compassionate, more humble, more prayer-thirsty. Others, however, became harder, blinder, less able to recognize the voice of heaven. And then the Virgin showed me a symbol, a scale suspended between the sun and the black moon. On one side, acts of mercy, on the other, indifference. The scales trembled as if a single sentence could tip them. It's not decided yet, he told me. There's still time, but that time isn't measured in clocks, but in conversions. The echo continued to grow, spreading across the skies. I saw him touch the temple towers, the forgotten altars, the rusted crosses on the roads. Every bell that hadn't rung in years began to vibrate without anyone touching it. It was the echo of judgment resonating through matter, a reminder that nothing is truly dead where a soul still prays. But I also saw the other thing. I saw temples full of noise but empty of faith. I saw ministers who spoke of God's love but were afraid to pronounce his name. I saw multitudes saying, Lord, Lord, while closing their hearts to those in need. And the Virgin wept. Her tears fell like pearls upon the earth, and each one caused a white flower to bloom where it fell. These flowers are the prayers of those who still believe. Through them, judgment is transformed into mercy. Tell them, my son, that every act of sincere love can silence a thunderclap in the sky. Then I understood that my mission was not just to warn. It was about igniting hope, because the judgment that is coming is not to destroy, but to separate the shadow from the light within each heart. The echo continued to vibrate, louder, deeper, and amidst its rumble, I heard a phrase that chilled me to the bone. When the echo becomes song, the time will have come. I asked what it meant, and Maria explained. When men begin to glorify darkness and call darkness light, The echo of judgment will be transformed into a song of pain. But those who remain faithful to my Son, those who love even when no one understands them, will be the choir that transforms pain into resurrection. Then I saw it, a small village on its knees, praying under a black sky. They had no temples, no riches, no power, only faith. And the Virgin whispered to me, "They will be the heart of my triumph." The echo of the trial faded slowly, but left a vibration in the air, like a bell that keeps ringing in the soul. He knew that the next sign would come soon, and that the world should prepare itself, not with fear, but with purity. And so, that vision ended. But inside me, something didn't die. The echo continued to resonate, not in my ears, but in my spirit, and I understood that I had to write, speak, cry out, until every heart hears what I heard that night, because the echo of the trial has already begun, and those who listen will know that the next sign is closer than we imagine. After the echo came the wind, not just any wind, but one that touched not the skin, but the soul. It was gentle and powerful at the same time, invisible, yet capable of moving even the most hidden thoughts. I felt it before I heard it. It was as if the air breathed differently, as if every particle of the sky carried a message that had not yet been written. That night, the silence was broken. The trees began to bow, not out of force, but out of reverence. The windows trembled, and the air that entered through them smelled not of earth or rain, but of purity, of eternity. Then I understood. Heaven was speaking again. The heavenly wind did not come to destroy, but to awaken. It was like a burning caress that purified without burning, and within that wind I heard the voice. "My son, do not fear what is coming, for the wind that now blows does not bring ruin but discernment. It is the breath of my spirit, which travels the earth seeking those who still listen." The Virgin's voice was sweet, but her tone was charged with urgency. The wind swirled around me, forming circles of soft, almost golden light. It was as if every particle of air remembered its divine origin. And Maria said to me, "This is the wind of truth. He will blow on the nations and tear down the walls built on lies. It will blow on the temples and reveal what has been done in the darkness. It will breathe on their hearts, and only those who truly love will remain standing." The ground vibrated. The sounds of the world seemed to blend with something invisible. The whisper of millions of prayers, the chants that had been forgotten, the promises that were never kept. The celestial wind gathered them up, purified them, and carried them back to heaven. And I understood that nothing said with love is ever lost. Every sincere word spoken on earth rises like a seed, and the wind of God makes it bloom at the exact moment. Maria showed me visions. I saw large cities covered in a fine dust, as if time stood still. I saw men running, seeking refuge, but without knowing what they were fleeing from. I saw the powerful trying to control the very air, and I saw how everything slipped through their fingers. The wind had no owner, it obeyed no human laws, it did not respond to force. It was free, pure, and responded only to the command of the Most High. "When you see the wind move for no reason," said the Virgin, "when the seas breathe differently and the animals behave as if they are expecting something, you will know that the Spirit has descended again. Because before every awakening, the wind speaks first. I knew then that this wind was the same one that moved over the waters at the beginning of creation, the same one that descended upon the apostles at Pentecost, the same one that was now returning to prepare the earth for a new time. But this time, it also came with pain. Not everyone will be able to withstand her purity," Ella continued. "Many will mistake a whisper for a storm, and when the wind begins to reveal the secrets, some will flee from the truth. But you, my son, do not be afraid. Speak when the air changes, for the heavenly wind will announce what human lips dare not utter." Suddenly, the air grew colder, and a murmur rippled through the sky. It was as if thousands of invisible voices were whispering at the same time. The sound was so deep that it seemed to come from the heart of the earth and the sky at the same time. And amidst that murmur, a phrase was repeated 3 times, in a language that was not of this world. "The breath of the righteous one is coming." I asked Maria what it meant. She looked up at the black moon, which still hovered high above, but now seemed to tremble, as if an invisible force were trying to tear its veil. "The righteous one is the one who will come to bring order to chaos. He does not come to judge with words, but with his presence. His gaze will be like fire, and his voice like wind. Wherever he goes, falsehood will fall away, and purity will shine forth. That is why the wind stirs, because the righteous one has been announced." Indeed, then I understood that that wind was the herald of change, not the end of the world, but the beginning of a new purification. Maria showed me how the heavenly wind entered the homes where people still prayed, how it strengthened the weary, how it healed without being seen. But I also saw how he avoided places where pride reigned. He simply couldn't fit in there. "The Spirit cannot dwell where man has made himself God," Ella said with sadness in her eyes, and the wind began to blow harder. The dark clouds parted in the sky, and for the first time in many days, a line of light crossed the firmament. It was a soft light, like the dawn that announces a new day. Maria smiled. "Look, my son, the wind has paved the way. Now the word will begin to be fulfilled." But as the wind died down, I saw something else. I saw that in some places on earth the air became heavy, almost poisonous. It wasn't pollution. It was something spiritual. These were regions where lies had taken deep root, where man no longer wanted to hear the voice of heaven. And there the wind couldn't get in. It was as if an invisible wall stood between heaven and earth. "That is the greatest battle," the Virgin said. "Not between nations, but between the silence of love and the noise of pride. When the heavenly wind blows for the last time, those who have opened their souls to the truth will be lifted up by its breath. But those who close their doors will be trapped in their own little world." I felt tears in my eyes, not out of fear, but because of the immense beauty of that love that still fought to save us. Because I understood that every breeze, every movement of the air, every breath was an opportunity to listen to God, and that the heavenly wind came not only to cleanse the skies, but to cleanse hearts. Suddenly the wind stopped, the silence returned, but this time it was a different kind of silence. There was no fear, but anticipation. And at that moment the Virgin spoke to me for the last time that night. "Tell them, my son, that the heavenly wind has not finished its work. He is looking for willing hearts. When he finds them, he will breathe on them with all his might, and spiritual fire will come from his lips. From that fire my army will be born, the army of light." She stretched out her hands, and I saw the air around her ignite with tiny blue flames, one for each soul willing to listen. The sky was covered with millions of sparkles that swirled like eternal fireflies. It was the army that Mary had promised, made up not of swords or thrones, but of burning souls. The celestial wind rose once more, this time brighter, more alive, more conscious. And as she disappeared into the distance, the Virgin whispered to me, "Get ready, because the wind has cleared the way. And now will come the voice of divine thunder." The entire world had been suspended in an instant that seemed eternal. It wasn't just darkness. It was as if time itself had been stopped by an invisible hand. The lights, the sounds, the voices, everything vanished. And in the midst of that absolute silence, humanity began to feel the weight of something much greater than fear, the awareness of the soul. The streets, once bustling with activity, were empty. The cities, gigantic, imposing, luminous, were now shadows of their former selves. From the mountains to the coasts, a single feeling coursed through hearts. It has begun. The moon was still there, red, immense, suspended above the earth's skies. Its brilliance seemed to pulse like a living heart, and with each pulse, something invisible trembled in the atmosphere. It was as if all of creation were responding to the Virgin's call. In the homes, families embraced. Some prayed softly, others wept. In the churches, priests lit candles and offered prayers that were lost in the echo of emptiness. And in some corner of the world, an old woman murmured with her eyes closed, "She's here." Suddenly, a breeze began to stir among the trees. It was no ordinary wind. It carried a soft, unfamiliar fragrance, like the scent of flowers that don't exist on earth. It was a presence that calmed even the most desperate soul. And it was then that many began to see her. Not with the eyes of the body, but with those of the spirit. A white light descended upon the places where faith still lived. In small towns, in hidden villages, in homes where a candle was still lit at nightfall, a female figure manifested itself with such a pure radiance that the shadows retreated without resistance. It was Maria, but not the serene image depicted in paintings, but the glorious mother of the end times. Her mantle seemed made of living light, and her face, though sorrowful, reflected infinite compassion. Her tears were not of despair, but of love. Each drop that fell from her eyes seemed to ignite the ground with golden sparkles. Those who saw her fell to their knees. Some shouted her name, others could only weep. But the most impressive thing was what could be felt in the air, an invisible force, a mixture of mercy and justice, as if the entire heavens were preparing for something no human could stop. Then Maria spoke. Her voice did not leave her mouth. It resonated within the soul, as if each heart heard her message in its own language, in its own pain. "My children, the time has come when everything will be tested. The sky has spoken for years, but few have listened. Now they will see with their own eyes what their hearts refuse to believe. Do not be afraid, but wake up, because day and night become indistinguishable, and the enemy has already been released among you." His voice mingled with the echo of distant thunder. On the horizon, the earth seemed to groan. The seas churned as if breathing furiously, and the air crackled with an energy that made even the mountains tremble. As she spoke, a group of children in a small village fell to the ground in a trance, gazing at the sky. Words came from their lips that no one understood, but the elders, with heavy hearts, knew they were the tongues of the Spirit. The animals, normally restless, stood still, gazing at a point in the sky. All of creation recognized that the heavens were opening, and then a flash lit up the night. It wasn't lightning nor fire. It was a line of light that crossed the sky from east to west. And in the center of that line, an immense cross appeared, formed of pure, luminous energy. It was not a symbol of human religion, but a universal sign of redemption. The heavens wept fire, but the fire did not burn. It purified. At that moment, millions of souls felt something within themselves. A lost memory, a voice that said, "This is the moment that was foretold to you." Nations began to gaze at the sky. Live broadcasts, satellites, cameras, everything tried to capture that impossible phenomenon. And although each country saw it differently, they all agreed on one thing. The face of the Virgin Mary appeared among the clouds. His lips moved, but they uttered no earthly words. Each person heard something different. For some, a call to repentance. For others, a promise of protection. But for hardened hearts, his voice was an echo of judgment. The world was divided. Some prostrated themselves on the ground, imploring mercy. Others blasphemed, shouting that it was all an illusion. And between the two groups, a silence stretched out, the same silence that precedes thunder. Mary then raised her right hand. With that gesture, the air changed. The birds fell silent. The fire stopped. And a single phrase, uttered with a power that no human could imitate, echoed through the atmosphere. "The seals are being broken." The sound of those words was otherworldly. It seemed as if the heavens themselves were being torn apart, And that's when the signs began. The first seal, a column of smoke, emerged from the earth in the Middle East, covering the sun like a black veil. The second, a great tremor shook the waters of the Pacific, and waves began to rise over the sleeping shores. The third, the air changed color, a shade between violet and gold, and an electric current ran through the cities, turning off everything artificial. Those who had faith knew it was not destruction, it was purification. The world was being stripped of its arrogance to remember who had created it. And while all this was happening, an invisible multitude began to pray. It was as if thousands of heavenly voices joined together in a single chant, a chant that repeated, "Hail Mary, full of grace! Hail Mary, full of grace!" That prayer resonated in their hearts like a shield. And amidst the chaos, those who prayed were surrounded by a soft light, as if within a circle of divine protection. No evil could touch those who held the rosary in their hands. The eyes of the world were fixed on the sky, but the real battlefield was invisible. The enemy moved among the shadows, whispering fear, sowing doubt, but Mary stood firm, spreading her mantle over her own. From his chest came a white flame that spread over the earth, and wherever that light touched, evil retreated, screaming with fury. Humanity understood, too late, that the warning had been love disguised as prophecy. And as the clock struck exactly midnight, the blood moon began to split in two, as if a celestial force were cleaving it down the middle. One side remained red, the other turned white, bright as the sun. It was the final sign. Mercy was still open, but justice had already begun its journey. Mary lowered her gaze, and a tear fell to the earth. That tear touched the ground and turned into light. And where he fell, a sick child rose up. A desperate mother found peace. A dying old man saw the face of an angel. Miracle and judgment walked hand in hand. Love and fear united in the same instant. And as the world watched the divided sky, the voice of the Virgin resounded once more. Dawn will bring the election. He who walks in the light will live. Whoever remains in the shadows will have already chosen their destiny. The silence returned, but this time it wasn't empty. It was the universe's breath before awakening. And on the horizon, a new light began to be born, a light that no sun could generate, because it did not come from heaven, but from within the souls of those who had believed. The clock read 1:12. The silence was so profound that even the wind seemed to have forgotten how to move. And it was at that moment, when humanity still contemplated the moon divided between blood and light, that a new energy began to travel across the earth. It was not physical energy. It was a spiritual vibration, an invisible wave that crossed mountains, seas, and hearts. I felt it before I saw it. It was as if thousands of forgotten prayers had been released at the same time, rising to the sky and descending again like a river of grace. In the midst of that mystery, a voice spoke to me again. It wasn't a sound. It was a presence that filled the entire space, as if the air itself became words. It was her, the Mother of Heaven, the same one who from the beginning had chosen me as her messenger to announce what human eyes were not prepared to see. "My son," said Maria, "the dawn will no longer be the same as before, because what is born today is not a new day, but a new stage of the soul. Hearts will be measured by their love, and every tear offered in faith will be transformed into a shield. But whoever continues to sleep in their pride, he will not recognize the light that is dawning before him." His words pierced me like fire. I understood then that it was not just the end of times, but the birth of a new awakening. Humanity was being purified, not to die, but to be reborn. The sky began to change color. The intense red of the moon blended with golden tones and deep blue. It seemed as if the entire sky was breathing. And within that dance of lights, figures began to appear that floated like living stars. They were souls, millions of them, rising, shining like sparks of pure fire. I saw them rising from everywhere, from hospitals, fields, ruins, deserts, lost villages. They were those who had left in silence, those who had suffered unseen, those who had prayed without receiving an answer. Now heaven was calling them. And a voice, so sweet it made them cry, called them by name. "Come, my soul, come home." I fell to my knees. I couldn't bear so much beauty, because in the midst of that sacred spectacle, I understood that every human pain had had a hidden purpose, and that nothing, not a tear, not a sigh, had been lost in the void. Then Mary showed me a vision. In it, I saw an immense book open in the sky, whose pages were like liquid mirrors. Each page reflected a human story, acts of love, betrayals, prayers, silences. Everything was there, engraved in the divine memory. "This is the book of souls," the Virgin told me, "and today the pages are being written again. For those who choose the light will be marked with the seal of the Lamb, and those who refuse to love will see how their own emptiness consumes them. It's not punishment, it's a choice." The ground began to shine beneath my feet. Tiny rays of light moved like living roots, connecting every corner of the planet. It was as if the earth itself was awakening, remembering that it too had been created under a divine promise. The trees trembled, the waters became crystal clear, and the air, which before smelled of smoke and metal, now smelled of purity. I saw the consecrated places catch fire. Forgotten sanctuaries, rusted crosses, abandoned chapels. Everything was filled with a light that did not come from lamps, but from the Spirit. And those who approached with open hearts felt something the world had lost centuries ago: true peace. The Virgin spoke again, and her voice was heard in the soul of every human being, regardless of language, race, or borders. The time of confusion is coming to an end. What has been hidden will be revealed. The masks will fall, the lies will be burned by the light, and those who lived in humility will be exalted. As she said that, I saw entire cities being covered by a golden fog. It wasn't fire nor smoke, it was something alive. Where that fog passed, people fell to the ground crying, not from pain, but because they felt, for the first time in their lives, the weight of God's love. A love so real, so pure, that the human heart could hardly withstand it. I saw a man, kneeling in front of his destroyed house, look up to the sky and shout, "Now I understand, now I know I was never alone." And at that moment, a light enveloped him and he disappeared, as if his soul had been carried away in celestial arms. Miracles began to multiply. In hospitals, doctors would fall to their knees when they saw terminally ill patients open their eyes. In villages destroyed by war, weapons rusted overnight. The air became clean, the waters turned sweet, and the children dreamed of angels. But along with the miracles came purification. Because the light, when it arrived, not only healed, it also revealed. And many who had lived in lies began to feel their own insides burning, as if the truth were stripping them bare before the eyes of the Creator. Some fled, others resisted, and others, weeping, surrendered. And in that act of surrender, they were freed. Maria spoke to me tenderly, though her voice carried the weight of the universe. "My son, humanity is facing its mirror. Whoever looks and recognizes their reflection will live. Whoever breaks it out of pride will be lost." The sky trembled again, and suddenly a shower of light descended upon the earth. It was not a rain of water, but of spiritual fire. Each spark that touched a person ignited their heart in a white flame. Some wept with joy, others with fear, because they felt that their soul was being purified from within. I looked at my hands, and they were burning too, but it didn't hurt. It was as if the fire of the Spirit was transforming me. He could see the invisible, hear the inaudible. I could feel the thoughts in people's hearts, the sadness of the world, and at the same time, the infinite tenderness of God covering everything. And then I saw the enemy, not in human form, but as a shadow that snaked among the lights, seeking fearful souls. Her voice was soft, deceptive. He whispered, "Don't trust it. Don't give in. It's not real. But wherever Maria's name was spoken, that shadow screamed and dissolved. Because no demon can withstand the purity of a mother. With a single gesture, she extended her hand over the earth, and a blue ray descended from the sky. The shadow shattered into 1,000 fragments, which were swallowed by the abyss. The air was bright again, and then the Virgin showed me something else, a door. An immense door made of golden light suspended over the sea. From it came songs, melodies that no instrument could reproduce. It was the threshold of a new dawn. Those who have believed will enter through this door, he told me. But before crossing it, each soul must pass through the fire of love, because only purity can dwell where eternal peace reigns. I saw crowds approaching that light. Some crossed easily, others stopped fearful, because the glare was so strong that it revealed everything. And I understood that the trial was not punishment, but the full exposure of the truth. The light did not condemn. It only showed what each soul had chosen to love. Then the sky began to sing a song. Thousands of angelic voices joined together in a melody that resonated in every corner of the earth. And the Virgin, with tears in her eyes, said to me, "This is the song of dawn. It is the voice of heaven calling its own. Tell them there is still time, my son. Tell them that until the sun has fully risen, mercy can still touch their hearts." And that's what I'm doing now, as his messenger, as a witness to what my eyes saw. I am speaking to you who hear these words. Don't close your heart. Don't get lost in the confusion of the world. The night is ending, and the dawn of souls has already begun. When the first ray of sunlight touches the earth, the choice will be final. Therefore watch, pray, and love, because every act of love is a spark that prepares your entrance into the light. And as I say this, I can still hear her, Mary's voice, repeating with infinite tenderness, "It is not too late, my son. There is still hope." The wind is moving again, the stars begin to disappear, and on the horizon, the first golden line of dawn draws the face of a new earth. A land where faith will be stronger than fear, and where the mother will continue to watch over them until the last of her children returns home. The bells began to ring on their own in the middle of the dawn. There was no wind, there were no hands to move them, and yet its sound spread through the valleys, through the sleeping villages, through the mountains where no one had ever touched any metal. That was the sign. Heaven had opened its lips. And I, her messenger, knew that the moment she had announced to me had arrived, the last call. I walked along a path covered in dew. The air had a different taste, as if each molecule carried a divine message. The birds, which had previously fled from human noise, now flew around me, as if they wanted to hear what I had also heard. My heart was trembling, not out of fear, but because of the magnitude of the task. Because I knew that what I had to say were not my own words, but those of the Mother of Heaven, who was still crying for her children who did not want to wake up. "My son," she had told me in the early morning, "dawn has already broken, but many remain blind. You will speak for me once more, and your words will be fire and tenderness. Not everyone will listen, but those who do will find refuge." I stopped in the center of town. People began to leave their homes drawn by an inexplicable feeling. Nobody knew why they were there, but something inside them had driven them. And then I spoke. "Listen, because the time of mercy has not yet ended. But the doors begin to close one by one, like an echo fading at the end of the day. Don't look for more signs in the sky if you can't see the sign that shines within you. Heaven has already spoken, and its word is love." The faces stared at me in silence. Some were crying, others were trembling, and there were those who lowered their gaze, unable to bear the truth that burned in my eyes, because the voice that spoke to me from within had the power to make my soul tremble. At that moment, the sky changed again. A gentle breeze began to blow, but it wasn't wind. It was something sacred, an invisible caress. And when that breeze touched someone, Their heart began to remember memories of a lost childhood, a forgotten promise, a love he once felt and had let die. "Come back," I said, "because the Father does not want your destruction, but your awakening. Return before the sun sets for the third time, because after that, what is to come will be irrevocable." The words came out of my mouth with an authority that was not mine. I felt that entire generations of prophets, martyrs, and souls who had loved without being understood were speaking through me. Every word carried the echo of the kingdom. While I was talking, I saw a woman in the crowd. She held a broken rosary in her hands and tears she could not hold back. He walked towards me and fell to his knees. "Can I still come back?" she whispered, and I replied, "Yes, as long as your heart beats, heaven is still waiting." She began to pray, and at that moment a light descended upon her. Those who were nearby saw it, a pure white flame that enveloped her and healed her wounds. It was the first miracle of that day. Then I knew I had to continue, so I kept walking, town after town, mountain after mountain. My voice multiplied like the wind, and wherever it reached, something awoke. I saw men hardened by hatred embrace each other for the first time in years. I saw children raise their eyes to the sky and say, "Mom, the sky is watching us." I saw elderly people who could not walk get up and follow me, not because of me, but because they felt her presence in the air. The nights were becoming strange. The sky seemed to pulse. Sometimes the moon would darken completely, leaving only a blue line on the horizon, as if Mary herself were watching over every step on earth. At that moment, his voice spoke to me again. "My son, the world still does not understand. They expect fire and punishment, but they don't see that the true fire is the love that is dying out inside them. Tell them not to fear the end, but indifference. Because what kills the soul is not darkness, but oblivion." I repeated those words everywhere I went. Some listened to them with faith, others mocked them, but something remained in all of them, an invisible seed. And I knew that even those who rejected the message, when the moment of truth came, would remember those words and cry. One night, while I was sleeping under a starless sky, I felt something descending. It was like a soft rose perfume. I opened my eyes and saw her. She was there. Not above the sky, but in front of me, enveloped in a soft light that did not blind, but caressed. "You have spoken, my son," he told me, "and many have listened. But there is still one more voice missing, the voice of silence. Tomorrow you will be silent, because the final message is not spoken with words, but with tears." I fell to my knees. Tears began to run down my face, and I couldn't stop them. She looked at me with infinite sweetness, and her eyes reflected all the pain and all the hope in the world. "Tell them," he continued, "so that when you see the sky darken again, you will not be afraid. For it will not be night that comes, but purification. At that moment every soul will feel my gaze, and he will know whether he belongs to the light or the shadow. It will be the moment when the heart will see itself." And he disappeared. The perfume lingered in the air for hours, as if the sky itself were weeping at its departure. I knew time was running out, that the last call had begun to resonate, not only in my voice, but in dreams, in pains, in the signs of the world. Since then, people have begun to hear invisible bells in their cities. Nobody knew where they came from, but everyone felt them inside their chest. They were bells of the soul, the echo of the divine call that crossed the continents. The animals were looking upwards, the trees were leaning, the waters became still as mirrors, and the men, for the first time in centuries, were silent. That's when I knew the world had entered its final hour of decision. It was not the end of humanity, but the end of blindness. Each heart was confronted with its own truth. And in that collective silence, in that moment suspended between fear and hope, I heard his voice again, the voice that had accompanied me from the beginning, saying with tenderness and authority, "The last call has been pronounced. Now the world must choose. I have stretched out my hand. Those who take it will live. Those who reject it will know their own emptiness." The wind stopped. The sun seemed more distant, and in the distance, a light began to form over the sea. A light that grew, throbbed, breathed, and that it would soon reveal what no human eye was prepared to see. The silence became absolute, and the sky opened. The sky, which for centuries had witnessed our pleas, that night became like an immense mirror reflecting the destiny of humanity. Everything was still. The bells stopped ringing, the dogs stopped barking, and even the wind, which always caressed the mountains, stopped as if afraid to break the sacred air that covered the earth. And in the midst of that silence, the voice of the Virgin Mary resonated within me once more, not as a sound, but as a living, ardent, maternal, and sorrowful presence. "The hour of silence and fire has come, my son," he told me. "The hour when hearts will be tested, when humanity will see the mirror of its own soul. Many will weep, others will hide, but only those who truly love will be preserved." I fell to my knees. There were no words to describe the density of the air, the weight of glory, and the trembling of my soul. I felt the whole world breathing on the edge of something immense, as if heaven were holding its breath before a final act. Then I saw a line of fire rising from the horizon, not a fire that destroys, but one that purifies. It seemed to come from the very heart of the earth, mingled with a radiance descending from the sky, and both joined at an invisible point above the world. It was then that I understood what the Virgin had told me in her previous revelations. The fire of heaven and the fire of the heart will meet to purify creation. As that light burned, I heard the cries of souls who did not understand. I saw entire cities plunged into confusion. Men looked to the sky seeking answers. Mothers embraced their children. The elderly wept silently, remembering words they had heard in their childhood when they still believed. And in the midst of all that, I felt I had to speak, that I had to repeat the words that the Mother of Heaven had entrusted to me, even knowing that many would not accept them. "Children of the earth," I cried to the wind, "do not fear the coming fire, for it is not punishment but cleansing. Return to the Mother, return to the heart that awaits you. There is still time for repentance. There is still a moment for mercy." The echo of my voice spread through the valleys. Some fell to their knees, others in their pride mocked. But even they, those who laughed, felt something inside them break. It was as if the firelight revealed to them for the first time what they had kept hidden in their souls. The Virgin then appeared, not with a visible body, but as a radiance that spread across the entire sky. The stars began to revolve around that point of light, as if creation itself recognized its queen. Her voice, soft yet powerful, resonated above all human noise. "My little ones, I warned you from the beginning. Man plays with darkness, believing he can control it, but he only ends up opening doors he cannot close. This fire comes to close them. Do not resist, for every tear will be a seed of renewal. He who humbles himself will be lifted up. He who loves will be protected under my mantle." The spiritual fire then began to touch hearts. Some felt it as a profound tenderness, a warmth that made them weep and forgive. Others experienced it as an unbearable burning, a truth that consumed them from within. For this fire did not come to punish bodies, but to reveal the intentions of the soul. I walked among the people, and in their eyes I saw the reflection of that heavenly light. I saw a mother embracing her sick child, and as she touched him, the child began to smile. I saw a man who had denied his faith for decades fall to his knees, weeping like a child. I saw young people who had lost all hope look to heaven again with new eyes, but I also saw the faces of those who rejected the truth. I saw the powerful hiding in their towers, fearing they would lose their control over the world. I saw empty temples and the truly faithful praying in the streets under the rain of fire, singing, "Mary, Mother of Silence, cover us with your mantle." Then I understood something the Virgin had told me in secret long ago, that fire was not the enemy, but a messenger. It was the visible manifestation of the Holy Spirit, purifying all that humanity had corrupted. It was the dawn of a new creation. The sky lit up with a clarity that no human mind could describe. It wasn't the sun, nor the moon, nor the stars. It was a light emanating from a divine center, and that light had a voice that said, "All that was hidden will be revealed, and all that was defiled will be restored." The silence was broken. The rivers began to roar as if awakening. The trees bowed respectfully, and the animals gazed at the sky without fear. Everything was alive. Everything responded to that presence, and in that instant I understood that humanity was being called once again to choose, not between fear and power, but between love and indifference. The Virgin spoke to me one last time that night. "My son, tell my children that the time of signs is over. Now begins the time of decisions. The fire you see is not the end, but the door. Whoever crosses through it with faith will find my embrace. Whoever fears it without love will be lost in their own echo." His words were etched into me like fire on stone, and when I looked up, the whole sky was ablaze with a light so pure it didn't hurt, but healed. It was as if the earth itself were breathing peace after centuries of darkness. But I knew, and she knew it too, that this was not the end. That behind that fire there still lay a greater silence, a final test, a sealed mystery that would only be revealed to willing hearts. And as the light expanded, as faces were bathed in a golden glow falling from the sky, I felt Maria's voice fading away, whispering with infinite tenderness, "Let him who hears understand, for heaven still has something to say." The fire had ceased. The silence, however, had not gone. It was a different silence, not one of fear or desolation, but of expectation. All of humanity seemed to hold its breath, as if every heart awaited a final word, a voice that had not yet been spoken. The mountains were still smoking. The rivers shimmered in a golden light that didn't come from the sun. The air was filled with a purity I had never felt before. I could smell life reborn from the ashes of the world. And in the midst of that supernatural calm, I knew that she was calling me again. I didn't hear a sound, but my soul trembled with that unmistakable certainty. The Mother of Heaven was waiting for me. My steps led me to a cave hidden in the rocks, a grotto illuminated by a light that had no visible source. Inside, the air vibrated, as if every particle of time bowed before a holy presence, and there upon a smooth stone rested a small crystal seal, transparent, yet within it a spark of fire flickered. "This is the sealed mystery," said Mary's voice, so sweet that it made one's heart ache to hear it. "The world is not ready to hear it all, but you will see it, and you will keep its essence until the time comes to speak." I knelt, trembling. I didn't know if I was worthy to behold that. The seal began to glow with increasing intensity, and from within it sprang images, not like dreams, but like vivid visions. I saw a transformed earth. I saw entire peoples kneeling before a sky no longer shrouded in darkness. I saw seas reflecting a bluish light, as if all of creation breathed the name of Mary. But I also saw shadows still resisting, small pockets of human pride, invisible chains trying to hold on to power and lies. "The mystery, my son," said the Virgin, "is that the kingdom begins in the heart before it begins in the world. Many await a new heaven, but heaven begins when the soul opens. Therefore this seal is not broken by force, but by love. His words were like purifying fire and comforting water. He spoke to me of the time to come, when humanity would experience an inner separation. Those who walk in the light will feel the peace of the new dawn, but those who refuse conversion will live in endless darkness, not external, but of the spirit. The enemy will try to speak before I do, he continued, trying to imitate my signs, to confuse my children with false wonders and messages of fear. But my true children will recognize my voice, because my voice never wounds, never imposes, it only invites. My voice brings peace, even when it warns. I felt a deep pain in my soul. It was the weight of the world, the groan of so many lost souls who had not yet heard that call. I saw unfamiliar faces, faces of men and women from all nations, searching without knowing what they were searching for. I saw their tears and their hands raised to the sky. And the Virgin said to me, "You will be my voice when the silence falls again, not to reveal the mystery with words, but to reveal it with presence. The mystery is not explained, it is embodied. Every heart that loves unconditionally will break a fragment of the seal." Then I understood. The sealed mystery was not a secret hidden from the intellect, but a truth too pure for human pride. It was the mystery of absolute love, the one that gives itself even to those who reject it, the one that shines even in the darkness. The Virgin extended her hands over me, and from the crystal seal sprang a white flame that rested on my forehead. I felt something burning within me, not externally, but internally, and I understood what it meant to bear the mark of Mary. It was to carry the mission of consoling a world that did not yet understand the love of heaven. "This fire will remain in you until the end," she said, "and when you feel it burning, you will know I am near. Speak when the world tires of hearing empty voices. Then my word will resound once more." The cave walls began to tremble, and the seal vanished in a flash of light. When I stepped outside, the sky was completely different, no longer black or red, but a deep, clear, almost sacred blue. But on the horizon, a golden cloud floated, like a divine signature in the air. As I walked, I heard the voice of the Virgin Mary within me repeating, "Do not fear those who do not believe. Do not fear those who mock. Their eyes will be opened at the right time. Just remain faithful. The night will not return, but the test will, and love will be the measure." At that moment I understood the true weight of the message. Everything I had seen, the signs, the fire, the silence, the tears from heaven, were nothing more than preludes. The sealed mystery was not an event, but a transformation, the instant when each soul would see its truth reflected in Mary's gaze. And I knew that the time of the great encounter would soon come, when heaven and earth would reunite, and prophecies would cease to be mere words and become life. In the distance, a star shone brighter than all the others. It was no ordinary star. It had a pulse like a heart, and I felt the seal that had vanished from my hands now beating inside me. That night I prayed like never before. "Mother of silence, teach me to wait. Mother of fire, teach me to love, so that when the mystery is fully revealed, my heart may be pure to receive it." And as my words dissolved into the air, a gentle breeze descended from heaven. It was she, the Virgin, whispering for the last time in that stage of revelation, "What has been sealed will be opened when love is stronger than fear. Then, my son, heaven will pour down upon earth, and the eternal dawn will begin." I don't know how much time had passed since that last call. The world seemed to have entered a new stillness, a kind of dawn that didn't belong to the calendar. The days were no longer measured by sunlight, but by the intensity of the spirit. I felt that something immense was approaching, something that surpassed all words, all signs, all the tremors of the sky. It was the definitive presence. The nights, once shrouded in shadows, began to be bathed in a white glow. The moon, which had once been black, now appeared as a pure mirror, reflecting a face of tenderness. The air had a new aroma, and the animals, the rivers, the stones themselves seemed to recognize that perfume. It was her. It was the Virgin, coming not from a distant place, but from within all that lives. One early morning, while I was praying on my knees on the earth still warm from the fire of judgment, I heard his voice, no longer as a whisper, but as a song that enveloped the universe. "My son, the time for weeping is over. Love has conquered death, and what was sealed now opens before your eyes." I looked up, and the whole sky was torn apart like a veil. From that opening descended a light so intense that the day paled before it. It was not fire, it was not sun, it was not lightning. It was the living essence of heaven. And in the midst of that clarity, Mary appeared, dressed in a tunic that seemed woven from sunrises. His gaze knew no bounds. Every time I looked at it, I saw the faces of millions of mothers, children, elderly people, souls who had loved. She descended, and the whole world felt it. The oceans calmed down, the winds stopped roaring, the cities came to a standstill. There was no country, language, or border that did not tremble at that appearance, but not everyone saw her with their eyes. Some only felt her in their hearts, a certainty that made them cry without knowing why. "I have come to reap what I sowed with tears," said the Virgin. "I have come to show you that the kingdom is already within you. Do not look for any more signs outside, because the miracle has become flesh in every soul that chose to love." I fell face down on the ground. I couldn't speak. My whole body was trembling. I felt my tears being absorbed by the earth, and that something new was being born from them, like luminous roots connecting the whole world. Maria's voice continued. "The mystery was love. The seal was the heart. The key lies where the unbreakable dwells, in the faith of my children who did not give up." Then I understood. What was unbreakable was not a mountain or a wall, but a soul that loves despite the ruins. She showed me visions. I saw men forgiving their enemies. I saw mothers embracing lost children. I saw old people who had waited their whole lives to smile for the first time. The fire of judgment had become the light of creation. Suddenly, the sky began to sing. It wasn't trumpets or human choirs. It was the pure vibration of the universe glorifying the Creator. The trees swayed to the rhythm of the invisible hymn, and each leaf shone as if it bore a divine name. The Virgin extended her hands, and a circle of light descended upon the earth. "This is the new covenant," he announced. "Heaven and earth will no longer be separated. Where there is a sincere heart, there I will dwell. Where there is forgiveness, there my Son will dwell. Where there is love, there God will remain." I felt as if the very air were embracing me, that the pain of the centuries was dissolving away. The planet breathed as one. And at that moment, I understood that the end of the world had not been destruction, but purification. All that was impure had fallen away. What remained was eternal. The ruins were transformed into gardens. The deserts were covered in flowers. The sea reflected constellations I had never seen before, and people from all nations gathered in silence, not to talk, but to contemplate, because God was in that silence. Then the Virgin spoke for the last time. "My son, my mission is accomplished, but my presence does not depart. I will be the light that guides you, the mother who comforts you, the voice that reminds you that what is unbreakable is not the stone, but the love that does not die." And at that moment the sky gently closed, as if the universe had exhaled. But its light did not disappear. It remained suspended in the air, floating above every soul. Each person who looked up felt a peace that could not be explained. I saw how the villages destroyed by the war began to rebuild their homes. I saw scientists, rulers, farmers, and children working together. The I no longer existed, but rather the we. Humanity, at last, had remembered its origin, and that's when I understood the key. What is unbreakable is not built with power. but with dedication, not with fear, but with love. I knelt down once more and prayed, Mother of the New World, keep in me the faith that does not break. Mother of silence, teach me to listen to the voice of those who suffer. Mother of fire, keep the flame of your presence burning. May he never forget that eternity already dwells among us. The sky darkened for just an instant, as if to remind us that there is still mystery. And then a final star fell over the horizon, leaving behind a golden glow that covered the entire earth. It wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something that would never end. Because in Maria's heart, time stopped running, and what she had sealed with tears now shone in every soul that had learned to love unconditionally. Thus the promise was fulfilled. Thus the mystery was revealed. Thus began the kingdom of the unbreakable.